and welcome. I'm Asuma Katauka and you're watching the World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at the top headlines of this hour. The United States and India have agreed on a trade deal after a phone call between President Trump and Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. The US will lower tariffs on Indian imports to 18%, while India agrees to reduce tariffs and non-tariff barriers on US goods to zero and stop buying Russian oil. President Donald Trump has warned that bad things could follow if Iran fails to reach a deal with the U.S. as pressure mounts after Tehran's January protest crackdown. Former U.S. President Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton have agreed to testify in a congressional investigation into Jeffrey Epstein. Days before a planned vote on holding them in contempt, the couple deny any wrongdoing and say they have already shared all they know. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer said engagement with China makes us stronger following his visit, but stressed the UK is clear-eyed about security threats from Beijing and that protecting national security is non-negotiable. European Union, headed by Anna Pears, has head of the Middle East and North Africa Bilateral Instruments Unit for Syria and the Middle East, held talks with the Syrian director of the International Cooperation Department at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs Syria and expatriates Qutaiba Kaddish as they explored ways to expand cooperation. Nigeria's armed forces said on Sunday that a key commander of the Islamist organization Boko Haram was killed in a night raid by the armed forces in Borno State. Abu Khalid was one of the key figures in the Boko Haram, which operates mainly in Nigeria's north. Nigerian prosecutors have filed 57 terrorism-related charges against 9 suspects over the June 13, 2025 Yelvata massacre in Benue State that killed about 150 people. OpenAI has explored alternatives to NVIDIA's AI chips, citing speed limits in inference tasks like coding. While NVIDIA remains dominant in training chips, the move could test its AI leadership as talks between the two companies continue. Now we start this hour with US President Donald Trump has warned that bad things could happen if Iran fails to reach a deal with the United States. Speaking to reporters at the White House, Trump has said Washington is currently in talks with Tehran following Iran's call to begin nuclear negotiations. President Trump has said he hopes a deal can be worked out, but made clear there would be consequences if diplomacy fails. As tensions rise, the president declined to comment on any possible military action against Iran. However, he has reiterated that the United States has dispatched tremendous force to the Middle East, including an aircraft carrier that is expected to arrive in the region soon. Let's listen in.
We're talking about that. We have ships heading to Iran right now, big ones, biggest and the best, and we have talks going on with Iran. We'll see how it all works out. Right now, we have a tremendous force going there, just like we did in Venezuela, even bigger. And they'll be there soon. And I'd like to see a deal negotiated. I don't know that that's going to happen. But, I mean, if I knew, I wouldn't be able to. I wouldn't tell you. I'd be very foolish if I would tell you. But right now, we're talking to them. We're talking to Iran. And if we could work something out, that'd be great. And if we can't, probably.
Now for this discussion, we welcome Mr. Matthew Vadam. He's an American journalist and author, joins us live from Washington, D.C. Thank you very much, Mr. Vadam, for joining us. Good to see you. Now looking at this, how significant is it the fact that Iran and U.S. have started direct diplomacy or direct talks, it seems like?
Well, I guess this is a sign that the U.S. Isn't 100% certain that it wishes to attack Iran if they're giving them a chance to negotiate. Although a lot of people would like to see, regime change in Iran to get rid of the barbaric regime there. The fact that the United States is willing to negotiate with Tehran at this point I think is fairly significant. But bear in mind, the two sides here are not on a level playing field. The United States has assembled a massive armada that is steaming towards Iranian waters, and they are going to be, and that is going to put a great deal of pressure on the Iranian government during whatever negotiations take place. So this seems to be a last-ditch opportunity to pull back from the brink and for the United States not to engage in military hostilities against Iran. So, there's a possibility that there could be a peaceful resolution of this, although I kind of suspect there will not be. I suspect that the United States will take some kind of action against Iran. But, we'll see. I don't have a crystal ball. I can't predict the future.
Yes, we will be eyeing that. And Mr. Vadim, as we know that the sticking points, although they might be talking, but the sticking points do exist. One of them, of course, being the nuclear proliferation or nuclear ambitions of Iran that the world or many countries in the world oppose to. What do you think, how would that be settled, or what options do both countries have to settle that down?
Well, I think Iran could just abandon its nuclear program. Excuse me, that would make the United States feel a lot better about the situation, but I get the feeling Iran is not willing to get rid of its nuclear program, especially since it spent so many years working on it. And Iran really wants to have a nuclear weapon so they can use it against their enemies, potentially Israel. Remember Iran, they have political rallies all the time in Iran where they denounce the United States as the great Satan and Israel as the little Satan. So, I don't think a few rounds of negotiation is going to fundamentally change the character of the theocratic dictatorship in Tehran. But, if there's a chance for a peaceful resolution, then they should definitely explore it, even though I'm inclined to be really pessimistic about the potential outcome for such negotiations.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vadim, for sharing that. Please
Sure.
stay with us as we stay on this news now. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has accused Iran of fueling war and violence across the Middle East and beyond. In a social media post, Zelensky has said the world is witnessing the scale of killings linked to Iran and criticized the regime for supporting conflict in multiple regions. He specifically pointed to the use of Iranian-made shaded drones in attacks on Ukrainian cities and villages, saying they have become a symbol of Tehran's role in the war against Ukraine. Zelensky has welcomed moves by European countries to take a tougher line on Iran. He noted that the European Union is moving towards designating Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps as a terrorist organization, a step Ukraine has already taken. Now we welcome back Mr. Vadim. He is joining us live from Washington, D.C. Thank you very much, Mr. Vadim, for staying with us.
Sure.
How can we how can we connect these dots that now Zelensky is accusing Iran of probably through Russia, but Iranian missiles or drones being used to attack Ukraine?
Well, I don't know for sure that it's happening, but I'm not surprised by the accusation. Russia is allied with and friendly with a lot of pariah nations, including Iran. So it wouldn't surprise me that Iranian, weaponry is being used, in the war in Ukraine. If that's what you're asking me.
Yes, indeed. I'm also skeptical about if the reports show
Sure.
Ukraine is using those. Oh no, sorry, Russia is using those against
Right,
Ukraine.
but Russia and Iran, Iran are like this.
Yeah.
They're very close and friendly to each other. So I don't see why they wouldn't cooperate in terms of war material.
Yeah. And talking about the dictatorship going back, you mentioned that like a few negotiations will not be changing the trajectory of things how it's been for more than 3 decades in Iran. Is there any opposition leader who can maybe change Iran or put an end to this Ali Khomeini's regime?
An opposition leader in Iran? I'm not certain. You could bring back the Shah in waiting, the Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi, but I think the Americans don't trust him. They think that he's kind of a playboy, that he's an unserious person who spends most of his time enjoying the luxuries that being a crown prince affords him. So there are. I don't know enough about the domestic situation there to tell you who would be an opposition leader to take over, but I know that they exist, and I know that they're not going to come to power easily because, as I was saying, after 50 years or 40 or 50 years of calling America the Great Satan, the Iranian regime is not sudden. That's going to be pretty hard to back away from all of a sudden. Like, how do you make a deal with the Great Satan? Seriously, I just don't see how they're going to be able to do it unless they think that the extinction of their theocratic regime is staring them down the face. They're not going to make a deal. So I think this is largely for show, and I think that the United States is likely to take action, as I said a moment ago, is likely to take some kind of military action, perhaps in concert with Israel, at some point in the not too distant future.
Yes, we will be eyeing that. Thank you very much, Mr. Radam, for sharing that. Please stay with us. Now, moving on to U.S. Newly released Epstein documents show Sarah Ferguson, the Duchess of York, was in contact with convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein while he was serving time in prison. Sarah Ferguson is the ex-wife of Prince Andrew, the Duke of York, and the mother of Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie. The latest emails published by the U.S. Department of Justice suggest Ferguson sought Epstein's advice on her business venture, Mother's Army. The documents reveal a close relationship between the two. One email from June 2009 shows Ferguson asking Epstein for help getting her business off the ground. Further email exchanges show Ferguson planning travel to meet Epstein. In July 2009, the emails detail arrangements for a lunch meeting at Epstein's Palm Beach home. The documents indicate at least 3 other meetings between Ferguson and Epstein in 2009. After his prison release, this continued contact has caused significant embarrassment for Ferguson and her family, with the latest revelations prompting her charity Sarah's Trust to announce that it would close for the foreseeable future. The files also include compromising images and emails involving her ex-husband, Prince Andrew, though no criminal wrongdoing by Ferguson has been indicated. Now for this, we welcome back Mr. Matthew Radam. He's joining us live from Washington, D.C. Thank you very much, Mr. Radam, for staying with us.
Sure.
Now, looking at this latest links between UK's elite and Jeffrey Epstein, what are we to make of this? And also the fact that she has closed or shut down her, temporarily shut down her charity. So a charity organization, don't you think it's a wrong timing to shut down or temporarily shut down this charity organization, because charity organizations could have helped gain some good reputation instead?
I think that right now that Sarah Ferguson, the Duchess of York, is probably quite frightened of the backlash against her as more evidence keeps coming out of how close to Jeffrey Epstein she was. With the emails that were recently released, don't just say show closeness. There's one email where Sarah Ferguson is positively gushing over Jeffrey Epstein and saying, why don't we get married? I mean, it's really, very forward. Now, is she joking? She just a flirtatious person? I can't say for sure. And this is also the danger with text, right? Sent over the internet. Email's kind of a dangerous medium, and you don't know if people, you can't tell tone of voice or look at their body language to know if they're being facetious or joking or what have you. But it was a very forward email, and they're very close. And I think that she saw what happened to her ex-husband, the former Prince Andrew, after his extensive and damning ties to Jeffrey Epstein were revealed, and I think she's trying to shield herself from that by taking herself out of the public eye. And I wouldn't be surprised if she just disappears from public view, from the spotlight altogether for quite a while in order to ride out the storm and then maybe come back again at the future, because I think members of the public, actually people around the world, I think here in America, I think people like Sarah Ferguson and probably wouldn't like to see her go through hardship. But the connections to Jeffrey Epstein are a bit much, and it may make a lot of people rethink the way that they reconsider how they feel about her, since they're going to say she was such a poor judge of character, like her ex-husband apparently, to become a close friend of Jeffrey Epstein. So I think she's trying to just pull back until the storm passes, and maybe then she'll return fully to public view. We'll have to wait and see about that.
Yes, we will be eyeing that. With that, I would like to thank Mr. Matthew Adam for joining us from DC and sharing that insight. Thank you very much. Now we move on to our next news. U.S. President Donald Trump has hit out at comedian Trevor Noah over a joke that he made at the 2026 Grammys, which referenced Trump's connection to Jeffrey Epstein. In a response to the joke, President Trump has called Noah's performance at the event terrible. He has also threatened to sue Noah over the comments. Let's listen into what President State has shared.
He said that I spent time on Jeffrey Epstein's island. I didn't. I mean, he's a lightweight, this guy. He's a terrible, I think he's terrible. I thought he did a terrible job at the Grammys. I thought the whole Grammys was terrible. I watched part of it. It's not watchable. But he was a lousy host. I'd say not as bad as Jimmy Kimmel, but pretty close. And no, he made a statement about me and Jeffrey Epstein. I have nothing to do with that.
Now we move on to U.S. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem has stated that her department was deploying body cameras to every officer in the field in Minneapolis, effective immediately, and the body camera program will be expanded nationwide as funding is available. Meanwhile, U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi has announced 2 more arrests following a protest in Minnesota church against the immigration crackdown, bringing the number of people arrested to 9 people. According to reports, a grand jury in Minnesota has indicated all 9 on federal civil rights charges of conspiracy and interfering with the First Amendment rights of worshippers during the January 18th protest at the city's church in St. Paul. Now we welcome Dr. Satoru Nagao. He's a fellow at Hudson Institute, joins us live from Tokyo. Thank you very much, Dr. Nagao, for joining us. Good to see you. Now looking at this, how do you think this is a good solution that they have come up with, especially putting body cameras on every officer?
This is proper, I think, because this time low quality of the work of the ICE agent killed victims. So that's why the breaching protocol is a very important reason to create this big scandal. But without videos, people cannot identify what really happened. So that's why the reaction came from the Democrat side and Republican side as divided. But after video released, both Republican government or the Democrats lead the local government agree to deal with this issue, and the tension has calmed down. So video is decisive factor to de-escalate the situation. So that's why if every officer has the camera, there is a possibility that this evidence could be the reason of the de-escalation of the battle between Republicans and the Democrats related to these issues. So that's why this is a very proper way, I think.
And do you think this is enough to gain public trust again, as you know, things have costed them a lot?
Yeah, in this case, the problem is low quality work. So low quality work should be improved by the more training, more education to the agents. So that's why in this case, just only the camera is not the perfect solution. More longer time is needed to educate and train, and how to deal with it is needed. And the other background reality, of course, in the gun societies, indeed the agents are wearing the gun possessed opponents always. So that's why a little bit aggressive mood exists when they face something, the problem. So that environment-related issue of the incident is also the matter. And if the United States government, both in this case, federal government and local government, can improve the environment itself, of course it will contribute to the solution. And one more environment-related issue is Republican versus Democrats. Just before releasing the video, it was a little bit too much escalation has happened. So de-escalation is better to deal with this issue logically. So that's why this is also matter. So training is matter, and environmentally matters. And in case of the environment, battle between Democrat and Republican, or the more aggressive mood related with gun, all of these issues are related with these issues. So if the problem should be solved, all of these issues will be matter, I think.
And lastly, now with 9 people now indicted on federal civil rights charges following the church protest, how does U.S. Justice Department's response balance enforcement of the law with protections for the First Amendment rights?
In case of the legal process, of course, the investigation is needed one by one, because the background reality, all of the background reality hasn't published yet. Only part of the facts released by video, but at the same time, all of the background reality should be examined in the process of the judicial system. So not just now, it is not easy to say which one is right clearly, but during the judicial process, it will reveal in the long run, and that process is very important in the democratic country.
With that, I'd like to thank Dr. Satoru Nagao for joining us and sharing that insight from Japan. Thank you. Now we move on to U.S. New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani says 16 people have passed away outdoors as the city endures a prolonged period of sub-freezing temperatures. The mayor said New York is now in its 11th consecutive day below the freezing mark, a stretch that could become the longest in city's history. Preliminary findings show hypothermia played a role in 13 of the deaths, while 3 appeared to be overdoses. Final causes are still pending. Mamdani has said none of those who've passed away were living in homeless encampments and called each loss a tragedy. The city remains under a code blue emergency. With expanded shelter capacity, increased outreach, and mobile warning units operating across all 5 boroughs as freezing conditions continue. Let's listen in.
A severe cold front continues to bear down on our city. Today is our 11th consecutive day of below freezing weather, and we could very well be in the middle of the longest period of consecutive sub-32 degree weather in our city's entire history. Without temperatures rising above freezing, snow has hardened into blocks of ice. But the greatest danger posed by this sustained cold is to vulnerable New Yorkers who remain exposed to the elements. As of this morning, 16 of our fellow New Yorkers have passed away outside during this brutal stretch of cold. In 13 of these cases, preliminary findings indicate that hypothermia played a role, and 3 of these deaths appear to be overdose deaths. We await final results from the medical examiner's office and will inform New Yorkers as we learn more. Each of these lives lost is a tragedy. My heart was with the family of those mourning their loved ones. We are continuing to do everything in our power to get every New Yorker into a shelter where they will be warm. The cold is showing no signs of stopping, so neither will this city's efforts. From information available now, it appears that none of the individuals who have died outside were living in homeless encampments at the time of their death. New York remains in a code blue. If you see someone in need, please call 311. Outreach workers and first responders from the NYPD and FDNY will respond and get those New Yorkers the help that they need. Our outreach workers have only intensified their work to get homeless New Yorkers into shelter. We continue to operate warming sites and warming vehicles across the 5 boroughs. We have expanded shelter capacity, relaxed intake rules, and are working with our partners across the city to increase outreach. As of this morning, we have made more than 930 placements to shelters and safe havens. We have also involuntarily transported 18 New Yorkers who were determined to be a danger to themselves or to others. We have expanded our mobile warming units to a fleet of 20, which are moving throughout the city, equipped with clinical staff to treat New Yorkers' needs and get them off the street. If you are hearing me speak right now and you are not sure if you will be looked after, please let me make myself clear. Every single person will be cared for. No one will be turned away. As part of that commitment, we have added 50 new single-room shelter units for those who are uncomfortable with other forms of shelter, because we want every New Yorker to know that shelter is there if they need it. It is primarily due to the weather, whereas typically after snowfall of any kind, rising temperatures would assist in the melting of that snow. Instead, what we are all experiencing is a cold that is continuing at a record pace, frankly. And what that has meant is that the entirety of the city's response is up to the city workers themselves. And what they've been doing is an incredible job. However, it is a job that must continue. And it is also a job that has required us to go beyond the typical. What I mean by that is that we might typically have just sanitation workers doing a lot of this work. Right now, we have 2,500 sanitation workers working 12-hour shifts, each 12-hour shift rather, and then we now have up to 1,500 additional workers, many of them coming from separate city agencies who are supplementing that work, especially when it comes to bus walks, bus stops, and crosswalks. And at this time, we're seeing that that's going to continue. What I'm thankful to see is that the pace of cleanup is increasing.
Now we move on to Argentina. Wildfires rage across Argentina's Patagonia region, fueled by strong winds and soaring temperatures. Firefighters, volunteers, and local residents worked nearly 24 hours to control the blaze along Route 71, which was forced to close. So far, the fire have scorched more than 60,000 hectares. According to officials in Buenos Aires, demonstrators marched to the Ministry of Security and demanding stronger government action. In response, President Javier Milei's government has declared a fire emergency after requests from regional governors. The situation remains tense as authorities continue to battle the wildfires. Let's in fact listen into what some of the demonstrators have shared.
Cuando los fuegos no se pueden controlar, estamos en un nivel de catástrofe. Esperemos que el clima acompañe un poco. Los combatientes, las y los combatientes están dando todo con un bajo nivel de posibilidad de recambio en los sistemas nacionales, incluso en el sistema provincial de Chubut. Ten en cuenta que están todas las jurisdicciones del país mandando brigadistas y personal de apoyo para atender esa jurisdicción.
Y la verdad que uno tiembla cuando ve lo que pasa, más si conoces el sur, más si estuviste en el Parque Nacional Los Alerces, que la verdad que para mí fue lo más lindo que conocí en la Argentina. Así que terrible lo que pasa. Es todos los días una noticia, es descomponerse. La verdad que a mí yo no puedo creer lo que está pasando. Porque
hay que discutir una solución, porque acá hay un problema de que no se están asignando los recursos necesarios para todas las obras de infraestructura, el cuidado de los bosques, el cuidado de los parques nacionales. El sistema de parques nacionales en la Argentina está abandonado y eso afecta mucho a nuestra Patagonia. Entonces tiene que haber también una solución de fondo y eso es lo que queremos discutir en las sesiones extraordinarias en la Cámara de Diputados y en el Congreso de la Nación.
Now we move on to South America. Uruguay and China have taken their strategic partnership to a new level. The two countries have signed 12 cooperation agreements covering science, technology, environmental projects, meat trade, and intellectual property. Uruguayan President Orsi has told China's Xi that both nations must deepen collaboration in science, connectivity, and sustainable development. He has highlighted the importance of intensifying trade and supporting each country's development plans. President Xi has said China and Uruguay will work together to promote a multipolar world and inclusive, globally beneficial economic growth. Officials have described the moment as the peak of the comprehensive strategic partnership. This marks a significant step in strengthening ties and expanding cooperation across multiple sectors. That's all we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for more news updates.